There's a winter in crypto, but there's never a winter in gaming. There is this new Web3 economic frontier. We can bring people from around the world into that economy. We can get them started by playing games. So you have this new economic frontier. This concept of a group of tradespeople is a very exciting frontier space. Many emerging economies in general have an incredible kind of Web3 adoption. And especially in that gaming category, that is where a lot of people will join the crypto ecosystem for the first time.
What's up, everyone? We're back with the Next Billion podcast. And today we're talking to, well, I should say, we always talk to entrepreneurs, builders, people that are making the world a better place. And that's absolutely the case today, because I'm being reunited with an old friend that I've only really met through the interwebs and in person once. We were just talking, back in the day, was it like a decade ago or something, man?
Yeah, probably like half a decade or something. Yeah, it was the crypto remittance days in Manila long ago, in one or two past lives ago.
Yeah, at least two past lives ago, yeah. I think. But here with Colin Goltra from YGG. How's it going, Colin?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, George. It's always weird to meet face to face instead of via Twitter shitposts. So it's nice to see you on the camera here.
That's it. I mean, I am a dinosaur on the internet, but hopefully I'm not too terrifying in person, but no, look, it's really cool to chat. Now, we have a lot of interesting things to talk about today, particularly actually when I was thinking about this, I was like, we need to talk to gaming people and we need to talk to people that understand this whole Web3 gaming thing. So I thought of you, obviously, but before we get into that side of things, maybe what's been your arc in crypto land? You've seen a lot of stuff, you've done a lot of things. Tell us about the journey thus far.
Yeah, thanks for that, George. And I'm super happy to be here. We've shared many a thread online. And so it's good to kind of double click on a lot of these topics. You know, I've been in crypto for about a decade now. I'm originally from the Bay Area in California and started my career in sort of finance and tech, right? So finance for the tech sector and then kind of slowly into tech itself. So I was in investment banking. And at the time, two things were happening. This was in 2012 and 2013. One is I was reading a lot of just libertarian literature. And so I was definitely of the, you could...
Similar arc, man.
Yeah. But many of us of that ilk are just, people that read the Austrians and just wanted to acquire a bunch of gold and then learn kind of about digital gold, right? So that was one part of it. The other part of it was I was working in finance. And so we had pretty strict, I knew a lot about, I knew about compliance before I joined crypto, because when you're at a financial institution, I think the first day of training, you come back from lunch and the compliance officer screams at you for 2 hours, just saying you do that, we'll send you to jail. You do that, we'll send you to jail. So we get sort of our, basically a bunch of people in my group at my bank just started trading Bitcoin, because it was okay, we can't trade stocks. It was bonus season, right? And so we were just what can we do? What can we speculate on?
Internet
right?
money.
Yeah, it's
that's the solution.
We were kind of at this confluence of, being an old Wall Street firm, but then also being the San Francisco office and being around a bunch of, a bunch of crypto people. And so, I was at the desk doing my day job, but then also when we'd be waiting on, feedback or before a meeting or something, we'd just be on Coinbase and Mt. Gox and Bitcoin Reddit and all this stuff, just trading Bitcoins. And basically this was the 2013 run up. It was awesome. We were making money. We thought we were geniuses. And then we all get wiped out. And then all the other ones are I'm out. And so I'm oh shit. I kind of didn't have the intellectual honesty to get out of the trade or something. And so I'm all right, I'm going to read real literature on Bitcoin. What's this all about? I was also very interested kind of in the Austrian School of Economics. And at the time, especially at that time, these two things were very closely related. And so started going to the meetups in San Francisco. This was, 2013, 14, 15.
Early days, yeah.
Early days. It was, there were people there that were super hardcore crypto anarchists. Some guy was there leaving his corporate job to go to Liberland. I met a prepper and I sold Bitcoin to a prepper. I was like, what's your name? He's I'm not going to answer. And it's going to give you cash. And he had a paper wallet printed. And so these were the early frontier.
I remember those
Bitcoin
type of
days.
people, yeah.
It was awesome. It was really great. And so I was working, kind of in sort of after finance, I did a corporate job in kind of a big tech company. And then, was always kind of in all the groups. I was kind of the crazy Bitcoin guy. And, I think at some point I was spending all my time outside of work in the ecosystem. And I sort of said, all right, well, this is a real thing. This is a real industry that's forming in some sort of ground floor thing here. I should jump ship and go do something crazy. And so I actually knew one of the investors in this crazy company in the Philippines. So my mother and her family are originally from the Philippines. And so I'm sort of dual identity or dual heritage. And so, yeah, I knew an investor that had just gotten back from the Philippines. He knew I had kind of had a family trip earlier that year that, and really enjoyed it. And he's just like, where there's really, this was, by the way, in the ecosystem, kind of, there was this era of like blockchain, not Bitcoin. And so I was like in San Francisco and I'm like, I'm trying to get a job in crypto and trying to get a job in Bitcoin. And everyone's like, I've got a great health records company for you to work at, right? And it was awful. It was like, it was the worst, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so it was like, what you should do that's really crazy is there's this company in the Philippines that has great traction that like they're going to raise a round soon. You're Filipino, you could move there. And so I joined this company called CoinsPH in 2016. And so, yeah, that's first chapter of the life with CoinsPH, which is where we cross paths. I know you at BitSpark were in sort of a similar problem space. And yeah, CoinsPH, we grew to be kind of a fintech and a sort of a payment platform. Certainly deep crypto integration, as the name might suggest. It was there for like 3 years. Helped to scale that. We ended up selling it to this kind of regional company called Gojek. After that, I took a bit of a break and then actually ended up at Binance. And so for 2 years was leading growth through sort of Southeast Asia while I was at Binance. And then maybe as a similar, I realize I'm being a little long-winded, so I'll wrap it quickly here. Maybe a similar arc. At Binance, I wasn't allowed to trade liquid tokens. And so, kind of in a similar arc to when I was in investment banking, I discovered Bitcoin. So at Binance, there's compliance checks around trading liquid tokens. And so in that time, actually discovered NFTs. And so this was 2020 roughly. And, I think there was, notable kind of crypto art and gaming and sort of collectors from that space in the Philippines, most notably this guy, Gabby Dizon, who is this very early Axie Infinity kind of super player, aggregated all these Axies. And so, while I was at Binance, I was very plugged into this very emergent, and this is probably what we're going to talk about soon here, this very emergent crypto gaming scene that was kind of just run by a lot of friends and acquaintances I had met in the space, right? It was like suddenly the Philippines was this, I don't want to say backwater, but we were just yet another, Manila was yet another international crypto ecosystem that had its companies and mostly on-off ramps and stuff. And then suddenly, like, the Philippines, it wasn't Manila, it was like the provinces in the Philippines were just this huge epicenter of like adoption for Axie Infinity and other Web3 games. And out of that, my friend Gabby had founded a company called Yield Guild, which, at that time aggregated Axies and other gaming assets to lend out to players for some yield. And I eventually left Binance to join YDG, which is where I am now. And we're kind of navigating crypto winter together and trying to forge the path of Web3 gaming now. But yeah, I think for us, the Philippines became this very weird market. And so Southeast Asia and many of the emerging economies in general, I think you have seen it have a lot of, an incredible kind of Web3 adoption. And especially in that gaming category, I think that is where a lot of people will join the crypto ecosystem for the first time and have been so far.
Absolutely. So I want to touch on that in a moment, especially like NFTs and how they emerged and how they've maybe solved some of the, it's really hard to use crypto sort of arguments. But I guess the moral of the story for your crypto arc thus far has been, if you see something cool, back yourself and just go and do it. Because that seems like what you've done multiple times where it's been, hey, this Bitcoin thing, wow, I should probably get involved in this. I'm spending all of my time thinking about it and doing stuff with it. Like maybe I should just jump in. Would that be an accurate summation of I guess, like, because people, they spend so much time like, I need to be the best trader in the world and I need to follow all the trader accounts for the alpha and that sort of thing. And that's sort of the Stan Druckenmiller approach of being just like a hedge fund manager. But then there's like the Warren Buffett approach, which is if it's a good thing, you should just buy the good thing. And that's it. It's much easier to take the Warren Buffett approach and just be like, yeah, digital money sounds pretty good. I think that's going to catch on because all of this other money like sucks in various ways. It's terrible to use. There's a million different flavors of it and they're all pretty terrible. So like, yeah, probably people will use digital money.
Yeah.
Would that be like a accurate classification?
Yeah, I'm reminded of kind of the midwit meme as you say that, right? It's probably good to be a very good trader or a very good quant, right? You have like Druckenmiller's incredibly successful and you have like Renaissance Technologies and stuff. And then on the other side, it's probably good to just own assets that are going to do really well and like not think about them, right? And just sleep really well at night and have a good life. But yeah, I think to that point though, I always hesitate to self-mythologize retroactively. And it's like, this is, I was endowed with this great vision of the digital money. But at the time, I think one of the things is you get immersed in an ecosystem and you kind of luck into this place where a group or kind of a scene has an interesting vision that seems crazy, right? And you can kind of get immersed in that culture of it and really see, I think collectively like come up with ideas and sort of see the future that is going to be built. And so, yeah, I think, I've kind of just followed, a few different times now, things that I thought were fun and exciting and, kind of lucked into those being very weird, right? And I think the market likes weird. And so that's maybe one of the lessons as well.
Absolutely. So I guess, from those early days till now, we've seen growth go from, a couple of thousand nerds on the internet to hundreds of millions of people around the world using crypto. And then always this question comes up of, well, how do people get into crypto, right? And initially, it was payments. Oh, we're all going to be paying our bills in crypto. And then it was, we're going to be remittances and transfers and that sort of thing. And I think we've come full circle now where the crypto community is large enough to be able to do things natively just within the existing crypto user base. Like you don't actually have to talk to the outside world. So maybe tell us a little bit about YGG and gaming, because one of the sort of realizations that I guess I had over the last year or two is people saying crypto is hard to use and that sort of thing. All these people that came for NFTs, they learned how to run a wallet. They used OpenSea. They got a MetaMask. They understood how to set that up. So a lot of different things going on there. But maybe it's not as hard as you think. And maybe gaming is the portal for that. So what's the deal with YGG? It's a guild, but it's not a gaming platform itself. Or maybe talk us through the thinking there.
Yeah, so thanks for that. And I think to the point you made, one of the things I actively think about is like, one of my maybe good rules of thumb for the crypto world is I think people vastly overestimate and overstate, probably by orders of magnitude, the interactions between the crypto economy and the legacy economy, right? Someday we're going to have, the tokenized real estate and that sort of thing. But like, it's vastly overstated. It's like, stuff in the traditional world kind of works. But I think the counter to that is they vastly underestimate by orders of magnitude, like internet native use cases, right? I think people just don't understand the concept of the digital economy. And so I think to that end, maybe one corollary of that, and we'll get into my YGG explanation of it, is I think that for most countries and, in the 21st century, I think the major global economic superpower is the internet. And the difference between wages is not going to be a function of where you live. It's going to be a function of if your job is in a national economy or on the internet economy, right? And so to that end, I think in emerging countries like the Philippines, where, there was this play to earn revolution, we hope it comes back. But, I think there were these economies being discovered. And I always liken, Axie Infinity, where Axie is kind of the main canonical example, but there's a lot of offshoots to this that we can go into. But that 2020 era Axie Infinity, I almost compare it to like a new economic frontier was discovered, right? A new continent or something. And when you have this new, this maybe we'll get into our talk a little later about some of the things we're passionate about. It's just where the frontier exists, right? And so, if you have this new economic frontier, all right, you're going to need capital. You're going to need people coming in, investing, and that's existed in crypto for a while. You're going to need, developers. You're going to, right, like both literally in a frontier, people who can build buildings. In the internet, it's people that can build software, right? But you're also going to need labor actually over time, right? So you do need people grinding in games, and you do want to, fill these frontier towns with people. And I think if you have a lot of humans in a place that becomes its own society, right? And so even if nothing was happening, people would value being the most prestigious person in a group of 1 million people, right? Like there's natural just human interactions and hierarchy that happen. And so it really became this economic frontier. And so we're not in the late 21st century yet. And so it's not one of those things where everyone that comes into the internet is going to instantly become a millionaire. But, I think the big insight was Axie Infinity at its peak was made, I think minimum wage playing Axie and interacting in the ecosystem kind of on average was like $2. This was the big insight. It became like $2 an hour. In the US or Australia or sort of Western countries, that's not very appealing. But in the Philippines, you can eat that. Like you get really excited about that. And so basically what YGG had the insight about and kind of the guild model was, in Axie, you could take these battle monsters, these Axies, and play in the game. There was tokens being distributed. You could kind of win, you could earn by grinding, but then also earn by sort of winning games. And there's this ecosystem that emerged, but it actually required some upfront cost, right? And so I think the YGG founders' insight was, well, you can buy axes, and because these axes are going to generate a yield, you can actually lend them out to end users, and or they can kind of participate in your guild. You can lend them out to end users, and you can share in the rewards that they make, right? And so if you can do this at internet scale, you can be making hundreds of thousands and then millions of dollars. And that 2020 and 2021 era, that really was the canonical business model for YGG. Since then, the crypto market rolls over. It's crypto winter now. And so a lot of those economics, which really are fueled by the frenzy of, there's a boomtown dynamic of people kind of coming to a crypto economy and just getting really excited about it and kind of fueling a lot of momentum. Those have rolled over in crypto winter here. And so now YGG, I think we still have many of our axes and would love to spin up scholarship programs if the right games were there. But we are focused in general we still have the thesis that Web3, kind of the metaverse, I don't like to use that word so much, but Web3...
It gets overused so much, doesn't it?
It's it was started in good faith, but I think there is this new Web3 economic frontier, and that, we can bring people from around the world, from any market, into that economy. We can get them started by playing games. We have people that'll help them set up a wallet. We have people that will teach them how to use DeFi. I think to the point you made a moment ago, part of what was exciting about this sort of Web3 play to earn economic boom was, people were not just playing the video game, they were learning how to use MetaMask. They were learning how to use layer 2s. They were learning how to use DEXs. They were getting airdrops as these platforms kind of, continued to scale. They were learning how to mint NFTs. They were learning how to collect NFTs. They were learning things that, I think people in our community see as really valuable sort of 21st century skills, right? And so they were not people necessarily from the capital cities of Manila and Indonesia and Southeast Asia. These are people in the province, right? These were villagers. And, I think they saw this economic frontier and, in traveling there, they learned all these sort of advanced skills that I think will serve them well in future, iterations in the crypto market as well. And so, I think YGG is this member-led guild. I actively think about the phrase guild a lot. I like it a lot because it serves two purposes. So there's the modern incantation of guild, which is a group of friends who plays games together, right? So you can think of a World of Warcraft guild or something. And that suits it very well because we are, a group of people online playing games together. But then that actually harkens back to kind of the original definition, which is, this third estate sort of, right? Which is, you'd have the state and you'd have the church and you'd have a group of craftsmen or tradespeople with whom you shared a profession, right? And, together collectively, you'd be able to exert influence economically on behalf of your profession, right? And so I do think this concept of a group of tradespeople for Web3, for markets that, are just kind of up and coming, I think is a very exciting frontier space. And, I think it's showing right now in Web3 gaming, but, I do think as crypto ecosystem becomes this exceedingly influential space, but also maybe unfairly maligned by, certain actors in national economies, institutions and actors in national economies, the concept for kind of professional organization is I think a compelling one as well. So, that's what we're doing in the Philippines and the emerging markets. And now, I think through crypto winter here, maybe just as a last little punctuation note here, I think we've tried to be very deliberate now about working with games and trying to figure out onboarding and sort of, kind of economic systems for them. We have some thoughts on how someone entering Web3 can quickly show proficiency, right? So we're thinking about, what does a Web3 resume look like? What is a way to onboard them into Web3 game, Web3 skills, gaming skills, track these things, share that information with the right partners. And so we've went from kind of this asset management operation to much more product focused. And I think that's really served us well. But that's YGG and kind of the concepts of guilds. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good point. Talking about the economics behind it and economics being its own little world in the Web3 world, and there's national economies and then the Web3 world. But I guess the point here is that how do you build sustainable economic ecosystems in this Web3 world? Like with Axie, as you were saying, hey, it was hype. It was, I guess we could say, there was so many VCs at the time that were waxing lyrical and putting their Medium posts out there about play to earn is the new thing and it's going to revolutionize the world. And then Zuckerberg renamed his very successful company Meta because it was so sort of taken aback by this thing. So, but now we have a bear market and perhaps the same economic principles are not in play, or maybe they're being refined. I guess from your perspective, like how do we build sustainable economic systems within games? And my initial thought here would be that, well, people already spend a lot of time and money in games. So it's not as if, this is some sort of unproductive thing that's not going to go anywhere. It's like, no, there's literally hundreds of billions of dollars around the world that's spent on gaming. So we know it's a thing and we know that people spend money in it. I guess the question is, what's your take on how do we build things that are maybe more resilient or ongoing, or is that even a thing? Is it just a circling roadshow that, keeps going to the next thing? Like maybe that's okay. Maybe that's just the name of the game. I mean, games from 10 years ago don't last forever, right? So what's the timeline?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. A member of our team has, there's a quote he likes to say, which is, there's a winter in crypto, but there's never a winter in gaming, right? It is this pervasive thing. And so, I think, to that point, I was speaking to a lot of the play to earn sort of talking points a couple of years ago, but I think in crypto winter, what we've been very encouraged by is there is a lot of games in the play to earn economy. And I exclude, so real quickly, like when it was the .com bubble, most of the .coms were terrible and don't exist anymore. But the ones that did survive far outpaced any losses from the .com, because that gave you Amazon and eBay and Yahoo and eventually Google and so forth, right? So, there is this power law thing where I actually don't want to throw play to earn out altogether, because I do think there will be some residual economies from that probably have long-term staying power. I think though in crypto winter, we're solidly in the post play to earn era of Web3 gaming. And I think to that end, I think something we've been very encouraged by is in the play to earn era, there's a lot of crypto people that wanted to learn how to make a game and launch a game. And now I think there's a lot of like people that have, decades or more of experience in other iterations of the gaming industry coming into Web3, right? And so it's not a Web3 person, backing into gaming. It's someone that has experience building several games, scaling it to millions of users. They're coming in, and I think we always like to think that we're pioneering new concepts in crypto, but a lot of times these concepts exist elsewhere and so forth. And so I think the gaming sector has a rich tradition of economy design, user experience, like scaling products on a technical basis, growth marketing. So these are all things that the gaming sector has refined through decades, right? Like truly, it has its own rich tradition. And so people from that industry are now coming into Web3 instead of the other way around. To me, I think that's a really encouraging sign in crypto winter. And then in terms of how you actually build a sustainable economy, I think traditional gaming, which is still, alive and well, has, a long tradition of people paying for physical goods, digital goods, companies they have with significant ad spend to acquire users. There is an existing economic model there, in the billions of dollars of spend in both directions. And so I think it suggests that it is possible to convert some of that existing energy into, Web3 focused activities, because there are a lot of things in Web3, ignoring the kind of boomtown dynamics I just discussed. There are a lot of things in Web3 that are very compelling to a game developer, right? If you want to sell, a digital mobile good for $5, that's pretty easy on a phone. But if you want to sell a digital good for $5,000 to your number one player, that's impossible, right? Like the app store blocks you, the credit card processors block you. There's not a way to own it. You have to spin up your own sort of infrastructure for digital goods ownership. So these are all things that are solved pretty feasibly in a smart contract ecosystem on the blockchain, especially on kind of a layer 2 ecosystem, or in your case, maybe on Solana. But, for a game developer, this would involve, a very significant spend in infrastructure. And so our thesis is that the next wave of Web3 games here will be built by people that have more traditional and much higher scale gaming experience. And, they'll be more thoughtful about economy design and digital good ownership. Another thing is one way to make it sustainable is just to be careful about the inflow, right? And so it's if you're not selling the goods to begin with, but you're starting to give away parts of your economy, and the secondary market forms that might be fine. But there's this new concept of maybe a factory NFT, which is, you can mint into an ecosystem or buy into an ecosystem, and then that's going to give you new digital goods on some regular basis, right? And now you're almost seeded parts of the gaming economy as the game develops, right? And so there's a lot of new concepts right now, but I think maybe the encouraging takeaway as it relates to sustainability of game economies is there is a new class of founders and builders coming in. And I think that's one of the kind of magical things about crypto is we have this wave after wave of, it started with a bunch of crazy Austrian people and gold bugs, and then the Wall Streeters came and the tech guys, the Valley guys came, and now the gaming guys are coming. The artists have come, so it's this weird, very extensible kind of ecosystem that keeps, getting this cross-pollination from other very successful ecosystems, right? And I think that's happening now in gaming.
And I guess that sort of flows into what happens next and where do we go from here? And we've seen many waves. We often on Twitter, by the way, everyone should follow Goltra on Twitter because you have very interesting takes on different things. So where are we going from here? And is everyone just going to be like Ready Player One? We're all going to be living in a van by the side of the road because the nation states collapse because no one wants to work and they have a VR headset and they become Superman in game. Is that one potential future? Are we all going to be living in forest cities, seasteaded on the ocean, in libertarian enclaves of people that are crypto entrepreneurs? What do you think this sort of crypto thing flows into? Gaming's been an interesting way that the crypto sort of has a natural fit, I think. Are there other areas that we should be considering?
We're talking coral farming. Yeah.
Coral farming, rich crypto guys that are just going to go and do crazy stuff. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, look, I you've outlined two different futures there, and I do want to delineate them a little bit. There is everyone's living in kind of, trailers and homeless shelters with a VR headset. And the other one is the one where
we're clicking ads on Facebook to get our next statement of rations or something.
Yeah. So that one would be a very bad outcome. Even if I am trying to build Web3 gaming, help to build the Web3 gaming economy. There is another one, which is, are we going to be on seasteads and forest cities? And I don't know, maybe I think the trend here, right, is, I guess if I maybe try to outline thematically, what the original crypto desire was, right? And it's actually not just the crypto desire, it's the internet desire. It is this concept, I think, that society's built and it's frustrating and stifling. And it's there's not new blank spaces on the map, this global thing. And so the cypherpunk from which Bitcoin kind of sprung, right? The cypherpunks were all about a new digital frontier, right? It was all about the reinstantiation of the frontier, right? And so it's the modern frustration is, you live in a city or a suburb or whatever, and you're disconnected from growth opportunities.
Horrible processes in the real world. They nearly stopped me boarding a plane the other day because there wasn't enough pages to stamp in my passport. What does that even mean? It means that there's there's a guy with some ink and it's he's looking for a space on a dead tree page where he can stamp, and he doesn't want his logo to be obscured by other logos. It's just dumb stuff like this. That's can I just have an NFT that I can just use as in place of a passport? And is that the thinking?
Oh man, you're setting me off here. Yeah, I mean, the idea that 200 years ago, we probably didn't have passports, and you're just an adventurous young man or woman from, well, maybe not an adventurous young woman 200 years ago, but you're an adventurous young man 200 years ago that was from some small town, and you want to just run away to Europe or Asia or whatever and, learn a language. And, the world felt much larger back then, really is what it was. And now in some sense it feels smaller, which is kind of fun because you can travel more easily and get recommended a location on Instagram to go that's several thousand miles away and you can be there a month later. And, that's interesting and compelling in some ways, but it's also stifling. It's fun to think about an unknown or a frontier or a place that other people haven't really discovered that much. And so that is philosophically the energy of the internet, right? It is oh man, there's this new place where stuff isn't built yet and we can go build stuff there. And if we build it, maybe people will come try it out and maybe we can make money. And so that is, I think, the ethos or what have you of the internet. And I think crypto takes that further because in the internet, previously, it's okay, we don't actually know how to make money. Well, we don't quite literally make money right on the internet. We're going to use the old money. And I always use crypto, by the way, because I don't think of it just as cryptocurrencies. It is the set of technologies enabled by cryptography, right? Of which most people are excited about sort of cryptocurrencies and NFTs and stuff. But honestly, it's also the ability to protect yourself in the frontier and what have you. It's the set of, cryptography is the...
And prove things exist.
Totally,
it's like, it's the way to identify truth in many methods.
The whole thing stakes. It really is the thing that makes it real instead of an illusion, right? But, man, where we were going with this? Passports. So
crazy crypto people changing the trajectory of the world.
Honestly, I mean, we're talking about the concept of a guild, right? I don't know if it's going to be Yield Guild that does this, but why not? Why not have... So, right, in theory, I'm half Filipino. Many of the people I'm close with are Filipino. The Filipino passport's horrible, right? So if you want to travel to most countries, it's not just that there's not space in the book or what have you. It's like, all right, I know I'm going to travel there 6 months from now. I know I'm going to travel to Europe 6 months from now from the Philippines. I'm going to, go to the consulate and submit all this bureaucracy and hope I get the nice stamp and, show that I'm a good person and that I'm not going to run away and live in Europe illegally, right? And what are they doing? They're checking your bank statements. They're checking, they're doing verifications on you to try to get some sort of estimate on, okay, do we have a runner on our hands, right? Do we have someone that's just going to, suddenly oh, you live in England now, right? And instead, all the stuff they're verifying is digital, right? Like it's bank statements, it's, education records, it's insurance and stuff. All that stuff lives digitally, gets printed physically, evaluated physically, and just shared physically. And then you go in, and you have to bring all this crap with you. Why not just have these things verified digitally, right? And why not have a passport, right? Why not have some sort of extra national organization that's saying, actually, this is a member of our DGen guild. This person's worth $50 million and they have the crypto to show it. And it doesn't matter what country they're from, and look, we're getting into kind of utopian cyberpunk stuff, but you could verify all that. I don't want to run away and, I'm rich in Asia. Why would I want to live in England?
Especially a lot of people are going to be working online in this new economy as well, right? So it's kind of the concept of that nation states have of gating access and entry and just these general things that you need to do, just admin work. Oh, you need to get a government approval for X or Y in Southeast Asia somewhere. Good luck. See you in a couple of months. Why? It's because of just silly bureaucratic systems, or pick a country. They're all the same, right? So it's are all of these crypto people maybe going to influence the culture, perhaps over time, of real things that happen in the world, just because the expectation is that, look, I'm earning all my money online, all my friends are online, I can exist anywhere. Also, the whole concept of, I don't want to go to X or Y country. It's why would you as well? If you're earning money online, why would I go to a high-cost country when I can just go to a low-cost country and do exactly the same thing? So really, these countries should be going, look, hey, you just pay us some money, and that's sort of the gating fee. It doesn't matter where your passport says you're from and the stamp and the logo on it. Oh, the logo says the Philippines as opposed to somewhere else. Okay, as long as you got the money, that's fine. But I guess the thought is are we going to be able to affect change in these other sort of Web2 systems throughout the world? Is that a natural progression of things? Because I guess the internet's been with us for many decades now. There is some resistance, I think, to people that grew up pre-internet. I pretty much grew up with computers my whole life. So all of the solutions to problems, I always think in terms of, can we get a computer to do it? Or can there be a website to do that thing? Maybe that continues to grow. I don't know. What do you think? Are there just going to be more people that are pushing for more of this Web3 type thinking in our built environment?
I hope so.
Well, what would be the contention against it? It would be vested interest, right?
Totally. Yeah. So look, I think the positive spin on this is I do believe that the internet's the largest economy. I think the internet will be the largest economy in the world. And I think almost every country is going to want to plug into that. And so in the same way you'd have dollar hegemony, you'll have native internet hegemony economically. No, I don't know if hegemony, but most countries will have a very clear
prevalence or something.
Yeah, we'll have a very clear incentive structure to have their workers work on the internet and to try to make that possible and to try to have other people that are good at working on the internet live in their country. And so I think there will be an incentive structure there. The other corollary to that though, right, is I also think the richest people will be people that work on the internet. They're already the richest people, right? It's people that build large societies on the internet, right? It's literally Elon and Jeff and Mark and, these guys are all people that build internet scale economies. They work on and have helped build the the internet scale economies, right? It's not just crypto, but it's all these other things, right? So I think that tech influence already is permeating. And I don't really actually even like to use Web 2 versus Web 3 because Web 2 becomes Web 3. They're not at odds. There are people that are still Web 2 people, and they probably don't like lots of stuff in the most recent iteration of Web 3, but eventually it's all going to be the internet people versus the national people and the other, like it's going to be like, I think Balaji has this dualism of like the land versus the cloud. It's going to be that, right? It's, do you work on the land or do you work on the cloud? And so there will be significant interests by a lot of very progressive countries, and those are going to be awesome places to live. I think that many of them already are. That, I joke sometimes that crypto people are going to live in one of like 9 jurisdictions, and it's going to be, all right, everyone's going to live in, I agree, Singapore or Dubai or Hong Kong or Portugal or Puerto Rico or, it's like, and hopefully that
pretty much already is in many respects.
And they'll have one foot there, right? So, that would be the positive case. And maybe one last on the positive case is like, because you'll have the richest people there, those people will be of that internet set of values, right? And so that maybe is where the Web 2 versus Web 3 thing comes, because, unfortunately Satoshi's no longer around, but if Vitalik...
He's a dude in the woods, I reckon, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just like some guy.
I hope so. I think you become an adult in crypto when you stop wanting to know.
Caring.
Not like when you actively don't want to know. And when you understand that we should hopefully never find out, it would be a bad thing to find out, right? Once you get to that part, you're now an adult in crypto, right? But it's the Santa Claus myth of crypto, right? I think maybe you think back to maybe like the Gilded Age or something, right? And it was like, okay, you had these industrialists making money on the frontier, building, industrial economies, and they had a certain ethic, right? They had a certain aesthetic, right? New York benefits from the great aesthetics that they had at the time, right? All this stuff, right? Then they said, fuck your built environment. We're going to level your city block and build a museum or build a library or build a whatever, right? I don't work in New York. I work in this much larger economy called the American West, right? And it was like, I'm going to do that. I don't care that you came on the Mayflower. I built a railroad, and I'm going to bring all that money back, and I'm going to level your house, and I'm going to build a library. It was that kind of thing, but it was people building on the frontier, and they bring the resources, they bring the ethic of the frontier back. They would retroactively fix the built environment. I think that's kind of the stuff we spaz out about on Twitter, which is like, hey, we fucked up our fucking oceans. Like, let's build a giant ocean robot that's going to clean all the oceans. Let's do that. Why not? Like, that's the ethic of like, let's bring the frontier back, right? The city sucks. Let's like knock it to the ground and build a giant marble city. Like, why not? And there's a little something megalomaniacal about it. And it's, we're mostly joking, but maybe not all the way joking. Like
half and half, I think.
Yeah.
It's also like the ability for things to change in the internet world is so quick. Like you can just deploy a new thing on the internet and boom, something happens, right? Whereas a city, it's so immovable. It's like, oh, we're stuck with the shitty decisions of 100 years ago. Can we just like build a whole new thing here? No, we can't. It's like super hard for a million different reasons. So I think that's why, like you alluded to before as well, is a lot of crypto people might just be like, man, I don't want to be stuck with the decisions of a century ago. I'm just going to go somewhere else and build a new thing. And then maybe that's the opportunity for like island jurisdictions and people that are like, hey, cool, man. Like I'm an island in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. Don't really have too much going on. Pretty much the only thing I do have going for me is we have this big fat internet cable, or Elon with the satellites above us, like able to give us internet. Can you go and bring money and prosperity and development to us, and we'll allow you to build on an island or something like that? I think that makes total sense for a lot of these. Like, Tesla's not going to build a factory like on a Caribbean island in the middle of nowhere, right? So your economic options are very limited. So I do think that there will be jurisdictions that emerge that are very, we could say, crypto friendly, Web3 friendly, maybe more innovative in adapting some of those ideas and systems to what they do. Like, as you say, like maybe people just sort of end up living in just a few places of the world, or at least maybe they're like, the old mantra of in the 1800s, you moved to London, in the 1900s, you moved to New York, in the 2000s, where do you move to? Well, maybe you don't move to a place. Maybe the internet is the place.
I've actually never heard that banter, but what's funny is I use almost the exact same mental model as I think through like the different layer ones, right? It's like you have, if Bitcoin's kind of like London, and it's like, if you were well situated in London, why would I move to New York, right? Like it was like, London's great. I have a big, I have a big downtown, mansion in London, and I'm very rich in London. I don't need to go to New York. That's bullshit, So then Ethereum is maybe the New York setup, and it's like, fuck you guys. I'm not going west. I have my city book. I have libraries here. Like, it's great. Like, New York's awesome.
Yep.
And then, suddenly there's railroads and stuff, and it's like maybe Solana and then, Polygon and, Near and Avalanche and all these different forays into new layer ones and different kind of layer twos and stuff. It's like we've got San Francisco and LA and all this stuff. And so I think maximalism is really just the like, no, I'm in this better economy. Like that one's never going to be anything, right? But I think Frontier point about just kind of moving west and where do we go from there is like, yeah, I think that was, you move to the internet, but maybe to kind of wrap it up here, people didn't go west forever. Like people could go west, make their money and come back to New York. People could go to the American colonies and come back to London, but when they come back, they left a peasant and they came back, someone, well-established that, has their own business interests and stuff. And like, I think that is the internet frontier, right? It is the ability to kind of go at your own risk and return sometimes, as even poorer than you started, but sometimes also with this new sort of ethic and resources that serves you very well in the original economy.
Absolutely. And it's happened before. It's not a crazy new mindset. It's like, no, this has happened many times throughout history. So, I mean, we could talk all day. I know you do have a literal plane to catch. So just wrapping it up, where can people find out more, either about yourself, Colin, or YGG? Where should they go? Twitter, internet, websites, Discords?
Sure, yeah.
Where should people go?
Sure, yeah. I'm very active on Twitter. Just find me at Goltra, Goltra, just my last name. And then Yield Guild, which is kind of my primary sort of day-to-day focus. YGG on Twitter is just at Yield Guild. But yeah, start there. Always happy to banter, share your ideas for kind of the frontier and how to fix the built environment. And I'm sure you'll find George and I bantering quite well there.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today. We should do a check-in 6 months from now and see if we're living in the utopia, flying cars and spaceships and stuff. But thank you so much for coming on board today, Colin. And if anyone has any thoughts about where to go, we'll put some of those links in the description as well. So awesome.
Thanks so much.
Have a great rest of the day. Have a good flight.
Likewise,
and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
See ya.